Yeah, thanks for those few that have joined in so far. You're the early birdie to the nerdy birdie. We're just gonna give it a couple more minutes here before we get started. But thank you so much for uh, marking this on your calendars and taking some time out of your day to join myself and Mark as we cover some billion best practices and getting into the nitty gritty as far as invoice customization, recurring invoices, the significance of breaking out your add-ons, your component services, etc. So, yeah, we'll give it a brief minute here, and then we'll get started. Some of you are all still trickling in here. Happy Monday. Happy President's Day to whomever was in the US yesterday. I don't know if it was a statutory holiday, but it was in Canada where we had Family Day. It's currently snowing. I think we have anticipation of like upwards of 14 inches. I live next to the Rocky Mountains, so yeah, I'm a hop, skip, and a jump to the Rocky Mountains here, and some of the best skiing in the world. But anyways, not to brag. I'm gonna get started. I think more of you are joining in, so let's get started. Hello. I don't know. That was really bad. But anyways, welcome to this webinar series where we're showing you start to finish examples of successful integrations with our synthesized vendors and channel partners, i.e. Halo. It's one thing to get an integration or PSA off the ground. It's quite another to see it take flight. Yes, you're going to hear a lot of bird or flamingo puns around here, but either way, we're featuring guest speakers on the vendor side, and they're sharing their integration experience with us and what it's like to be using synthesized billing, whatnot. So that's right. That means what went well, what went less well. After all, every flight hits little turbulence now and then, especially when it comes to implementing your PSA. Now, again, for those that don't know, you can join us on the third Tuesday of every month as we explore vendor and PSA integrations from every angle so you can realize your full potential. Now, before we do get started, let's review our agenda for today, and then we'll jump into some introductions. After that, we're going to highlight the significance of breaking out your revenue and cost of goods sold. We're then going to follow that with jumping into a demo and getting into the nerdy birdie, the nitty gritty, if you will, of customizing your billing experience in Halo. We're going to be highlighting some really advanced features within Halo that I think you're going to be really interested in, especially if you're one that is wanting to break out all of your revenue and cost of goods sold, map those to general ledger accounts, see your profitability on demand, and abide by those billing best practices. Because whatever you can think, Halo probably has a way. So it's really exciting to be showcasing that with Morgan today. And then we're going to jump into how to automate billing reconciliation. Morgan is going to share some ways on how to automate that reconciliation within Halo. And then if we have some time, I might be able to showcase synthesized billing as like a stopgap, or if you want to layer synthesized billing over top of Halo to do a final stop check and make sure everything aligns and whatnot. You can do that. And then I'll follow lastly with Q&A, but I would encourage you to jump into the Q&A section here, ask questions. I'll be monitoring that throughout the webinar here, and yeah, ask us anything. So without further ado, I'm just going to introduce myself real quick. If you don't know me, my name's Bryan Chapman. I am a recovering MSP of 6+ years. I'm now manager of partner success here at Gradient MSP. So I know all the pain and suffering that comes with billing. I've experienced it firsthand myself, but I'm really here to take that experience, those best practices, and then share that with the community. So this is what I'm here for. I love working with MSPs each and every day, talking to them face to face, and providing some awesome solutions to their billing needs. And then I so happen to have experience in Halo, and quite something that I'm very passionate about. Definitely want to keep an unbiased opinion here at at grading MSP, but otherwise, I truly think Halo's definitely one of a kind platform. So I know that you know that. Now it's just a matter of peeling back those layers and seeing how you can take full advantage of the platform, and then pairing it with synthesized billing to automate your entire process. Now, without I don't want to talk too much about myself. I want to introduce you all to Morgan Aspinall, which is the multiple hat wearer here at Halo Service Solutions. Welcome, Morgan. How are you doing?
Hey, Brian. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, looking forward to talking all things billing in Halo. So yeah, yeah, like you say, multiple hat wearer here at Halo. I suppose you could call me a technical consultant. Don't have first-hand MSP experience. However, I've worked with many MSPs implementing Halo over the years. So I've seen all sorts of weird and wonderful methods for billing and encountered plenty of challenges and overcome pretty much all of them.
Yeah,
So yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, there's when you have a will, there's a way with Halo, and you'll see that today in work. So I don't know if you noticed our AI generated photo of you, Morgan, turning into an astronaut, but our marketing team is awesome here. But anyways, it's amazing what you can do with AI, right?
Yeah, I was like, is that me? No, not quite. But yeah, it looks uncanny.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Now, just talking briefly about the significance of breaking out revenue and cost of goods sold. Now, this is really why we're here, and how are you going to then accomplish that on your recurring invoice within Halo? How to break those all out, how to map those to your general ledger accounts within your accounting package. And then further to that, how do you customize your invoice so that you only see the grouped items, if you want to call them that, like your service bundles, your packages, whatever it is. You want to simplify that invoice so it's not overwhelming to your client. Either way, we can do that all today. We're going to showcase that, but I want to just draw light to the impact of breaking out your revenue and cost of goods sold. Now, I'm probably preaching to the choir, but it track profitability. It enables you to track the profitability of specific services, identify areas of inefficiency, and make informed decisions about pricing and cost management. This information is essential for growing your business and increasing profits. Now, quite honestly, this is one thing that I struggled with most when I was in the operations working at an MSP, because quite honestly, I wanted on-demand reporting as to our profit margins. This often came weeks later after the invoice cycle. Now, if we were to break things out and map those appropriately, we're not only abiding by like GAAP, which for those that don't know, it's general accepted accounting practices, but you have the breakdown of all your transactional services, licenses, subscriptions, and whatnot that make up that bundle, that make up that package, so that you don't ever over provision, under provision services. You make sure that you're compliant and you control your costs, bottom line, so it doesn't affect your bottom line, right? So this is where auditing your entire tech stack to maintain compliance. Let's just talk about that for a second, because billing reconciliation, that's great, truing up your quantities across the board, but let's take another dive in there. Auditing and being compliant. You want to make sure that if you're providing service bundles, packages, you want to make sure that you're deploying all your antivirus. You're deploying your EDRs, your MDRs, your XDRs, whatever the acronym is out there right now. Either way, you want to reconcile and true up those as best as you can on the monthly cadence, so you're not paying out of pocket unnecessarily. And then on the flip side, you want to make sure that you're compliant, making sure that all of the component services or add-ons. I think one of my UK partners threw out the whole bolt-on. Is that a thing out in the UK, Morgan? Bolt-ons? I don't know. Either way, it's all the same thing. But that's this is essentially breaking out those things so you truly understand everything that makes up it. Now, Morgan's going to share how you're going to then create some nice reports within Halo 2 and how to view that profitability on demand, which is awesome. But in addition to breaking out your revenue and cost of goods sold, it's just one of those things where you might get into situations where you want to avoid altogether, regardless if that service only costs you the $2 to $5 per month per license per subscription. I often coin this as death by 1,000 cuts, because all of a sudden you provision 100, 200 licenses of, DNS filter or whatever it may be, and those aren't allocated properly. Well, guess what? You're probably going to be either non-compliant, or you're paying unnecessarily from a specific vendor. And we all know that we're working with 15, 20 plus, if not more, vendors and services, and that list continues to grow. So we want to make sure that we're truing up and reconciling each and every one of those. And then finally, just producing clear and accurate financial statements. It's mapping revenue and cost of goods sold to general ledger accounts, providing clear and organized record to prepare timely financial statements. This can save you time and effort when it comes to bookkeeping and accounting, and then promote transparency and accountability in your financial reporting. And again, I coined GAAP because, again, that's where you're allocating transactions to the performance obligations set in your contract or your recurring invoice. Now, all of that is really, it looks great on paper, but how are we going to effectively configure your recurring invoices and then your invoice templates? Before we dive into that, I just want to ask you real quick, how are you managing your recurring invoices right now? A typical service bundle includes various services, like I said, across 15 plus, if not more, vendors. You probably are working with 20 plus more services and subscriptions. They include RMM, BDR, endpoint protection, remote access, security awareness, network security, MDM, SaaS applications, help desk support, etc. Like, that's a lot, and that's just a short list. And again, with that growing list of services, licenses, and subscriptions, it's easy for you as an MSP to overlook the significant tech stack gaps when left unchecked. Maybe you're an MSP that offers that lump sum, quantity one X dollars amount every month for your clients. That's one comprehensive package. But if you're not breaking that out, again, it might result in poor service delivery because you're not auditing and checking those balances. You might reduce profit margins because, again, you're paying unnecessarily out of pocket for things that you don't need to. So let's change that and promote billing best practices. And how are we going to do that within Halo? Well, we're going to do that with some really advanced features. So let's take a dive in right now, and let's jump into Halo, highlight some of those advanced features to configure your recurring invoice and invoice templates with the ultimate goal of breaking out all of your revenue and cost of goods sold on your recurring invoice, and then mapping those individual line items to general ledger accounts within your accounting package. And then finally creating an invoice template to suit you and your customers' needs, because that's the end goal. Ultimately, you want to get paid on time. You could care less what your recurring invoice looks like, but as long as your customer invoice looks and is polished, then that's really all you really care about. So now, so I'm going to stop sharing for a second, and I'm going to share my screen in Halo. And now I talked a lot, so sorry, Morgan.
No, not at all.
I almost need a breather.
Yeah, no. I mean, you're absolutely correct, and I think you sort of touched on a really important point there around billing best practices, where as the MSP, you want a detailed breakdown of all of your component, cost and revenue lines within the invoice. But of course, while you say that, you don't necessarily want the customer to see a line by line breakdown of everything, at which point they might say, oh, actually, the Microsoft licenses are good, but you're charging me a bit too much for my spam filter or whatever. So I'm going to go elsewhere for that, take that off my stack. So we're going to see shortly how you can have that detailed breakdown within Halo itself. So of course you have the reporting, you have the analysis all in your accounts package as well, while at the same time, anything you're sending from Halo to the customer will only see that bundled group. So yeah, I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, and that's just it. So when there's a will, there's a way within Halo, and we found a way, and it's a bit nerdy, but we had a lot of fun doing it because we're actually creating some SQL reports and creating a report table to then embed within your invoice template, which is really cool. But either way, your recurring invoice might look something very similar to this, or something on the opposite end where it's just super simplified. Now, if you're one to break out all your services, then that's great, because within Halo, you can associate those to your product IDs or your GL accounts within your accounting integration. That's one way of just mapping those line items to general ledger accounts, which makes things really easy. But again, how are we going to consolidate all these line items into a more simplified invoice in itself? Because let's face it, maybe you do just have your basic user workstation bundles, and you charge those per device and user. You have a unit price there, and that's all you do. And maybe you have Microsoft 365 licenses and some other SaaS applications on the side. You break out those, that's fine. But either way, you want to break out all the add-on services that make up your user and workstation bundle on your recurring invoice here. So that way we can then tag or mark those particular items as, say, your bundle or your package. Now, everything that makes up that bundle, we just want to go in here and we just want to modify that price, because we don't want that price to come in to your accounting package, because again, it's just cost of goods sold. So we just want to make sure that your cost is populated, but your price in itself is zeroed out. Because ultimately what we want to do is bundle all these line items into that one user bundle, let's say, or your package. And we just want to show that ultimate net amount of 2,200, or whatever it is. But everything underneath that makes up that package, we just want to zero out that price. And we want to have all those costs attributed to them. So we're mapping those to all of the product IDs for your accounting package. So that's quite honestly best practice. This is probably not the best recurring invoice to look at right now, but you get the drift, is that we're zeroing out all the cost of goods sold for your price, and then we're just including your cost in there as well. So that way, when we go to build some reports within Halo, we have a clear understanding of your net profit and revenue and whatnot. And that way we can drill into, at a customer level, your profitability. So that's what it looks like. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, it's there's quite a few steps involved, but quite honestly, it's pretty simple. So what we're going to do first is we're going to head to configuration, and we're going to create ourselves a custom field. So this is where you go into your configuration, custom objects. You're going to go into custom fields, and from the entity drop down there, you're going to select yourself. What am I looking for? Your product. And from here, you're going to create a new custom field for product. Now, I've already gone and created one. Effectively, what I did is created the label, service bundle, whatever you want to call it. I just added a field label there. Is this a service bundle? Or you can say, is this billable, non-billable, whatever it is, you can create that into a checkbox field, and then that's that. Now, next steps is just to enable your custom field for service bundling items in your recurring items within your items list, within your where is it here? Your products. So if I were to go into your recurring items, you create a recurring item. Maybe it is my basic user support, your comprehensive package, whatever you want it to be. Your custom fields tab here is where you're going to see that new custom field for you then just to edit and mark as billable, non-billable. Is it a service bundle? Is it not, etc. Once that's ticked off, we're going to actually use that custom field within the SQL schema in building out that custom report table, which will then embed into a custom invoice. Now, this is getting really nerdy at this point. So when it comes to SQL, I'm probably not, it's not my biggest strength, but I did do it with GPT. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that because I have no shame. So once we do that and we enable that checkbox for all of your revenue generating line items, your service bundles and your packages and whatnot, everything that you just want to show on the invoice essentially, then you would go in here and create your own custom report. Now, I think I have one here. I think it's this one here. Give it some time to load. I am on a test instance. Normally, Halo is really quick and snappy, but I am on a test account here.
Couple of really creative solutions that you've got to achieving this. I'm liking it so far.
Yeah, I mean, there's no end to what you can do with those custom objects, those fields. You know, the fact that you can add custom fields and objects and buttons across various entities, whether that be your tickets, your products, whatever it may be. There's just no end to the configurability of Halo to fit your needs, right?
Yeah.
Which really gets me pumped up. But
like you say, when there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
And with Halo, when there's a will, there's actually multiple ways. So
there's like 1,000 ways to skin a cat, and we just
Yeah.
found that this was the best way of skinning this cat. So now what you see is the desired output, the final outcome of this report table. This is where we just went into the product catalog and just marked basic user support as the service bundle. Again, essentially, we're checking that box off for any product that you want to show on the invoice. So we see that total quantity, price, and subtotal. Again, this is where you want to make sure that all of your add-on services and component services that make up this bundle within your recurring invoice marked as 0 price. You still want that cost attributed to that, so you can map those to your GL accounts. But again, we don't want to pull that into this report. So again, just making sure that you mark those prices as 0. Now, what does this look like on the data source side? This is where you can create your own custom report. Again, I don't expect you to copy and paste and record or, take multiple screenshots of this. This will be readily available. We'll send this out to all of the attendees and those registered for this webinar. We have no problem sharing the SQL makeup of this report and all the steps that are required to make this happen. So don't feel pressured to make notes here. We'll make that available to you. So what I've done is created a custom SQL query report. I pulled in that service bundle, that custom field, so that CF service bundle, and we're saying as service bundle. And then we're actually pulling in your invoice IDs. And then finally, we're just making sure that, hey, I just want to filter out and I just want to show those line items that were identified as your custom field service bundle or non-billable, billable, whatever you want to call it, is greater than 0, meaning that it has been ticked off, right? So that's essentially the quick makeup of that. And once you have that, you're then going to change the appearance of the table. So again, this is going to be available to you in written form after the event today. But again, we just want to change the HTML and the makeup of what the actual report looks like. So all said and done, when we go to review that table, we see the product description, the long description of that particular name, Again, this is where you have full reign and customizability into your invoice table. Maybe you want to break out your hours, your quantities, your price, your subtotals, whatever you want to break out, you can add that to the table. So you can be as descriptive or you can be as simplistic as you want. That's really where the flexibility of creating these invoice templates through reports comes into play. So you have full reign as to how you want that invoice to look like. Now that we're satisfied with the end result, the outcome here of that table, we're going to then use this report and create a custom invoice template. So what that looks like, again, we're just going into configuration, reporting, if I can find that, and we're going to go to PDF templates, and from there, choose the drop down to your invoice list. And then this is where you're going to create your invoice template. Now, I already created that custom invoice, but I'll step you through real quick what that looks like. What we're going to do is add that report that we had created previously to this invoice. And if I can mark out of here, you'll see that it will actually give you a data variable to use within the makeup, the HTML makeup of this PDF invoice. So once we have that data variable, we can then go in. Of course, you can play around with the parents, make sure that it's all color coded and branded appropriately and whatnot. But finally, we're just going to delete all of the columns that make up your details table within this custom invoice and just add in your custom column. And from there, we're actually just going to copy and paste that report variable within the cell content. Now, again, that's what it looks like. So that's your custom report. That's what you did. You can left align that. And finally, what we're going to do is go into the pages. This is your main page of your invoice. So what you want to do is you want to go in and add that data variable to all of your detail table here. So if we even do a quick search here, you'll see your detail table. Where are we looking here? There you go. Within the table class is equal to table data, detail table. You're just going to populate and replace that variable to your report variable that you used. And you're going to do that here within the actual core template, within the invoice line table row. Again, it's already built for you within the default PDF template. You're just replacing those variables, and as well for your invoice group table. So all said and done, what you have is a really nice looking invoice. Now, of course, I didn't brand it, but you get the picture. What was once a fully broken out, and if I were to go to A1 car wash, I'll show you what is happening in the back end, which if I go to the recurring invoice for A1, probably not the best way to go to recurring invoice. I could have probably done it by customer. This is why you have this fancy dancy. Anyways, it's already going. Here, if I can find it, I think we were looking at this one here. So there you go. So what I did in this recurring invoice is, for my own sake, I actually created myself like a recurring a group of items. So you can group all those add-on or component services. Just a way to clean this up from the back end. And then this is your recurring revenue generating line item. This is the one item that shows on that final invoice. But you can see that I have multiple add-on services that make up that user bundle within the recurring invoice. So again, then tie those to product IDs or general ledger accounts within your accounting package. So that's the real extent of this, is breaking out all your revenue, cost of goods sold, and then going to the full extent of just pushing out a really nice nicely configured invoice template, something that's easily digestible for your client. Ultimately, you don't want to, maybe you do want to break it out, but again, you have that configurability within Halo to customize your invoice template however shape or form that you want, which is really fantastic. So that's that. And now I think I'm going to pass the torch over to Morgan, and he's going to talk a little bit more about reporting, and then he's going to delve into how to automate billing and reconciliation within Halo. So passing you the torch so I can shut up, and you got more important things to talk about than I do, but that's the full extent of what you can do within Halo here. So
No, for sure. Let me share my screen real quick. I think that highlights a really powerful tool when it comes to the generation of invoice templates in general. Of course, what you did there was you created a specific report based on a SQL query to only present lines based on that checkbox being checked, but that you could create any report. You could have report for time on tickets that have been billed towards that invoice, or a list of users equating to the licenses that you're billing for, or assets, etc. So again, while everyone's watching this, keep in the back of your mind that you can get quite creative with these solutions here, and that's a fantastic demonstration of how you can provide additional information onto an invoice template. So let me share my screen. Hopefully you can see this.
yes, we see that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Your dashboard looks way better than mine.
This is a recently updated version of the trial instances. So if you were to spin up a trial today, this is what your dashboard would look like. And I just want to start off just again harking back to that point of there's multiple ways to skin a cat in Halo. I just want to sort of demonstrate some other features that actually sort of arrive at the same outcome of what you demonstrated there, and that's going to be by looking at sort of invoice template groups or product groups, and how we can only present the group headers onto our invoice template. So if we head into configuration and into the general settings that we have for billing, firstly, we will see in our invoice creation settings, we have this default option here for whether or not we're showing or hiding grouped line items. So this might be a different way that you want to achieve that outcome, especially if you have sort of standardized bundles where you only want to show the bundle itself and you don't want to show that breakdown. So I've turned that on in here. Again, it might be that you want that to be off by default. We'll see in a moment that that option is configurable on an invoice by invoice basis. Now, if I just head into the option directly above, go to my group templates. Now, the purpose of these group templates is to sort of configure your bundle, configure your package, or at least, you know, more or less the totality of the package once, and then you can call upon this one variable moving forward in your invoices. That means that you don't have to add in your Barracuda, add in your Microsoft E3, add in your Defender. You just create the bundles in here. So I've set a couple of examples up just based on sort of a three-tiered structure, where we've got our essentials, just going to have business basic and Barracuda protection in there. Premium, that might have a standard license, might include Defender, and then enterprise that will have E3 Cronus as well. So once you create these groups, which of course you can just do by clicking new in the top right and adding in here the particular products that are going to make that group up, then what you'll find when you're creating your invoices or your recurring invoices, you'll have the option here to add a group of items. Now at this point, I have this drop down at the top where I can actually call from those groups. So maybe when I'm setting this up, I want to provide the premium package. And again, just before I save this, we'll see that option there to show or hide our grouped line items. Basically, do we want to show the components of this bundle, or do we just want to show the bundle? So as well, because I've already set up all of the relevant configuration in the template, I'll check this box, and that's just going to automatically add all three in. Now, touching on some of the automations when it comes to billing in Halo, and particularly thinking about automating the quantities of recurring invoice lines based on other parts in the system. In particular, I'm thinking about well, let's look at what we have here. So we have our we've got our business standard licenses. We might want that to be based on license counts that are imported from CSP, for example. We might want our Barracuda impersonation to be based on the number of users that we have against the customer being invoiced. We might want our 365 Defender to be based on the number of workstations that we have imported from any particular RMM that you have integrated with Halo. So let me pick Halo in here. And we can actually automate those quantities at the point of creating our recurring invoice just by clicking the pencil against the line in question, at which point I'll have the option to either just hard code a quantity in or have my quantity based on some other part of the system. I suppose it's worth mentioning before we go any further that that itself is based on a configuration option. And we'll find that configuration option in configuration, believe it or not, billing, recurring invoices. So I don't believe this option is enabled at the point of spinning your trial up. So if you are looking to sort of utilize what I'm about to demonstrate, you just want to come into config billing, recurring invoices, and enable this option. Now, once you've done that, you'll find that your quantity is going to provide you with a drop down, at which point we can pick what it is that we're actually sort of targeting here. So if I select licenses, I'm then presented with a table of contents below where I can actually pick the license or licenses that I want this to be based on. So this is my 365 business standard line. So if I go in here, I'll want that to be based on my on my Microsoft Business Standard license. Again, the licenses themselves can be imported from CSP. I don't have an integration set up with that on this instance. I will show you where those licenses will flow into as and when you do integrate with CSP or any other disti that we have available. And those will be against the client record itself under our software licenses section. So we can see here that I've included 19 licenses, 19 business standard licenses against HaloPSA, which means that when I create this, hopefully I'll find the quantity of the recurring invoice line be 19. So we'll have a look at that in a moment. Again, it's also worth noting that when you're automating these recurring invoice line quantities, it's not static. And not only is it not static, but you can also have those lines prorated. So we have a few proration options, pro rata options. Either you're not going to be pro-ratering and you're simply just going to include the changes on the following invoice. A popular one is pro rata from when the change was made. So you might have your CSP sync running on a daily basis. So we get updated license counts each day. And as and when those change, the invoice lines can reflect those changes. Or if you're looking to sort of immediately invoice for a license that is added in, we can also do that as well. Particularly handy for the NCE changes that have recently come up. So you add a license in, customer pays for it next time round, so you don't have to worry about losing any revenue there.
Now, so real quick there, Morgan, you're gonna have to create these license quantity updates for each recurring invoice line item, right? But once it's all said and done, it's set in stone. You shouldn't have to worry about it. Like that sync is running constantly in the background. It's adding those pro rata items and updating those quantities appropriately. Now, do you have to have the Halo application running in the background within your Azure instances, or is this just a direct sync from Microsoft Graph API?
Great question. So there's a small in-house tool that we use for the syncing, and this is also applicable to an RMM sync as well. It's called the Halo Integrator. If you're
Mhm.
hosted, we will host that for you. If you're on premise, then you'll have to set that up yourself. But you don't necessarily need Halo, the web application, running. You don't need the web app screen, you don't need the browser open, but you do need the Halo integrator running on a scheduled basis to get those updated quantities.
And then another question that I have is just in regards to just auditing all the changes. Is there a way of reviewing when those changes occurred for particular invoice line items?
Yes, absolutely. So based on, in particular, sort of in the context of what we're talking about here, we have auditing of user changes, license changes, and asset changes. For example, if I was to go into this license itself, I'll see a change history tab here.
Awesome.
So we
Yeah.
can, you can see over time licenses that have been moved, allocated to users, removed from users, counts changing. All of that good stuff.
Yeah. And the great thing about that integration too, especially with Azure AD, is they can associate who consumes that license all from within Halo, right?
Yeah,
That's one thing that
that's
I really liked in setting up those parameters within the actual integration. And you can create those specific to each environment too, from my understanding. So that way you have complete control, because let's face it, Azure Active Directory is pretty messy and it's not necessarily standardized across all your Microsoft tenants. So this is where you can really customize that and configure that however you want.
yeah, absolutely. In sort of as a sort of slight segue, I suppose, or a side note, when you're setting the Azure AD integration up, which I don't have, you can establish the users that are imported into Halo based on a variety of factors. A common one is going to be a particular group in Azure, and in Azure itself, that group can be dynamic based on active, inactive, licensed, and so on. So yeah, you can be. It's not just, doesn't just pull everything in. You actually have agency over who comes in, and yeah.
Yeah. So Justin has a question here.
Sure.
And so before you dive into your next bit, there is our main pain point for billing is reconciling the quantities of service provided. How many users, how many PCs, how many licenses, with some authoritative source within like your Microsoft 365, your RMM. It takes a lot of work to get everything properly shaped up to generate the monthly invoice. How do we simplify this? How do we speed it up?
So I would probably suggest, when it comes to devices for the licenses, there's not a great deal of there's not much you can really put into it. You specify the license, you specify whether or not it's we're only looking at licenses assigned to users, but that's pretty much all you have.
Right.
If you were, so I'll save that, and I'll move on to the 365 Defender. If you are having your invoice quantities based on asset counts, we actually have some greater flexibility here over specifying what criteria on the device should determine whether or not it's allocated to the invoice line. In particular, you have an entire sort of table down here where you can specify the particular field that you want to use. At this point, we might be able to have that based on a custom asset field.
Yeah. And I think maybe so Justin, real quick, not to call you out, but he was just referencing he's a PAX8 partner. There's a PAX8 integration with Halo, is there not?
There absolutely is, yeah. The subscriptions won't be imported into Halo as software licenses, but they will be imported into Halo as subscriptions. So PAX8 integration, wherever you are, so many these days.
Yeah, so what I think is best for you, Justin, I think Jacob already kind of alluded to it in chat, is to sync up PAX8 and Halo, match up all those subscriptions, and it will save you a ton of time reconciling those license counts.
Oh,
So
100%. I mean, if you're using PAX8 and Halo and you don't have them integrated and you're manually adjusting invoice line quantities as per PAX8 subscriptions,
yeah,
there's a huge benefit that you can achieve straight away by integrating PAX8 with Halo. Like you say,
yeah,
you establish your PAX8 customer to Halo customer mappings in here. I believe you don't have to do this provided the names are identical, but it can't hurt. So you
yeah.
establish your customer mappings, you specify the subscriptions that you're looking to import, and then you have your invoice lines. Instead of being based on licenses, we'll see you can also have them based on subscriptions.
Hmm.
And again, that's one and done. You integrate that, you connect PAX8 to Halo, you ensure the integrator is running on at least a daily scan for PAX8, you
Hmm.
set the recurring invoice line to be based on subscriptions, and then you sit back and watch Halo do all the work.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so I think that hopefully that answers your question there, Justin. And if not, just jump in. But yeah, I think this is also answers his concern over like, oh, I have clients that go and purchase their own licenses direct through Microsoft, which then affects the count within CSP integration. But I think you could technically filter those out.
That's
Um,
correct. Yep.
yeah,
When you're doing your software license imports via CSP, you can pick whether you're just importing all licenses, all SKUs, whether or not you as a reseller are providing them, or whether you only want to
direct.
establish those.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, because like let's face it, through mergers and acquisitions, where you just have a mess of licenses with direct with Microsoft through another indirect reseller as a result of you acquiring that client, and what again, it might be messy, but you should be able to filter those out within just the CSP integration alone, which is really
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Right. So just sort of pressing on with the license counts for my Defender. Um, we have that based on assets. If I just jump in, I'm going to specify that that's actually based on assets. Let's add that back in. That's going to be based on assets of type workstation. So again, if you've got sort of per server support at X amount and per workstation support at Y amount, you can split that out onto the invoice as well with their own prices and so on. And then finally, we will have our Barracuda based on users. So I'll pick my quantity in here as users. And that's going to be users. I've only got one site, but of course, if I had multiple sites, I could pick the site in question. Again, sort of allowing you to be a bit more granular in terms of who's getting billed, or who's counting towards the invoice, who's not counting towards the invoice. You might want to set up multiple sites in Halo, have your CSP sync placing users into different sites based on some attribute in Azure itself, and then sort of filter in here accordingly. So I'll do that. When creating your recurring invoice, of course, it's important to set your schedule. Without a schedule for your recurring invoice, the invoices themselves are never created and you never get paid. Certainly not efficient when it comes to revenue streams.
Set that schedule. That's one of our requirements with Synthesize Billing too, is you need to have that billing frequency in place. You have to have that schedule. Yeah.
Cool. And so now we can see that, so I've put that as all licenses. So the quantity has come through as 34 based on the fact that against the client record, there are a total of 34 licenses in here. We have 7 against our user. And again, it's kind of handy to see the little icon here so you know exactly what these numbers are sort of being pulled from.
Very cool.
Quantity of 7 based on seven actual users plus the general user. So that's where the 7 comes from. And then we got 4 in here based on 4 workstations against the client record.
That's brilliant.
Nice.
One other question before you move on, and this is regarding PAX8 again, is do you have to download or host the Halo integrator to sync from PAX8, or is that a direct integration?
The integrator does the Pax8. Anything, any integration where Halo is pulling data on a scheduled basis will require the Halo integrator to run.
Okay.
Yeah.
So either hosted, or if you're on premise, you have to host it yourself or go through Halo.
That's
Yeah.
exactly it. And another handy point, I suppose, to sort of answer that in general is if you go to a particular integration and that integration has a Halo integrator option, then it will require the Halo integrator to run. You can also get modular. It's not an all or nothing. You can pick what integrations the Halo integrator is actually sort of polling data from. So yeah, if you're unsure as to whether or not an integration requires the integrator, just come in here, come into the integration. If it has an integrator header, then you know that it's going to be required, and not only is it going to be required, but you're going to need to enable it for the integration in question.
Right.
Cool. Right. So I created my recurring invoice. As I mentioned, that doesn't actually create the invoice itself. To create the invoice itself, there's a manual way and an automated way. The manual method is to head into the ready for invoicing section within the invoices module of Halo, which you can sort of effectively consider as an interactive dashboard of everything in Halo that can have an invoice generated for it, but doesn't yet have an invoice generated for it. All of your
You're approve and post, essentially.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So I filter by customer up here, pick my invoice, click create invoice, and fire that off. And now the automated method is enabled via heading to configuration billing recurring invoices, at which point you can enable this option to automatically create your recurring invoices. And this will effectively, once the schedule has been met for the recurring invoice, they will just be created themselves in the back end. My advice to sort of new customers to Halo is to not necessarily have this on initially. You're going to want to make sure that all of the numbers that you're seeing month by month are accurate. But once you get to a point where you feel comfortable that you're just sort of giving it a once over, you're not seeing any anomalies, you're confident that everything's set up, you might want to come in here and check this. And at that point, you no longer have to worry about creating those recurring invoices. You'll actually see as well, if you enable this, an option will pop up below where you can automatically send those recurring invoices or those instances of the recurring invoices to respective accounts' email addresses whenever they're created. And now what will be sent is going to be the invoice PDF. As you sort of demonstrated earlier, that is based on just some HTML that you can input. Again, it's a bit of a sort of double-edged sword there. It is as flexible as one's knowledge of HTML is. So you can have the templates looking however you want, but not necessarily the most sort of user-friendly. So I'll just sort of briefly mention at this point, watch out for version 2.112. There's a cool feature. There's a cool feature coming up that's going to make the modification of PDF templates more user-friendly. I'll say no more on the matter for now.
Yeah, we don't have enough time for that. There's there's so many good features coming out with the next major release. And if you don't know, go to the question mark top right. You can go to your release notes and you can review anything that's coming out.
For sure. And so, yeah, when I say it's the sort of PDF that is sent to the customer, in this case, it's going to be this PDF here. Might as well click generate PDF. And what we'll see here is one single line on the invoice. Managed security, premium, quantity of 1. It's got our price. It would have tax if I put it on there. However, if I go to the invoice that it's been generated from, we can see the component lines within. And that goes back to that point that I mentioned earlier, whereby against a group, you can show or hide products that are within a particular group. And you can even get a recent development is you can even get more granular than that. You can actually pick on a line by line basis as to whether or not you want to show that line on the invoice PDF. So
Again, there's
Yeah,
multiple ways of skinning that cat, and this is just
exactly,
another
exactly.
way of doing what we did originally when I spoke.
Yeah.
The only reason why I went the most more customizable way of creating like custom fields is because I ultimately wanted to reconcile your top revenue line item, your managed security premium, as you show on the
Mm,
recurring invoice. I wanted to reconcile those. If you're using product groupings within recurring invoices within Halo, yeah, you're not able to update that quantity for that revenue line item. That's all baked into the actual product itself. So, but there's 1,000 ways of skinning that cat. So regardless of how you want to manage your recurring invoices and ultimately have that final outcome of that customized invoice template, you can do it all within Halo, which is really, really nice. And you've gone to the full extent of branding that PDF. So thank you very much for
no,
that. But we
not a
only have
problem.
a couple more minutes here.
Yeah.
Morgan, I don't know if you wanted to mention real quick about just, I think you mentioned some customized reports.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I'll sort of briefly mention that the Halo sits on top of a SQL database,
Mhm.
and the sort of the reporting capabilities into Halo are simply a series of SQL queries directly into that database. Again, very similar sort of point to note as with the PDF templates. The data that you can get out of Halo is as good as the data you put in. There's no limitation really. If one knows how to write the SQL to extract the data, then
If
the
not,
data
go to
is
Chat
effective.
GPT, right? So
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do what
That's
I did.
I'm gonna have to follow up with you about that. I don't know. That might make my life a little bit easier for sure. Again, another handy development that has recently been introduced is the query builder.
Mhm.
Not enough time to go into it, but yeah, we're making the creation of reports in Halo more user friendly.
So
Now,
I think where you wanted to go with that is just effectively, oh, there you go, profit by nominal or GL code. So that's perfect.
yes,
There you go.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So just a quick report that I whipped up that sort of looks at the line items that we have on invoices generated over a given date period. And from that, we're looking at the group that the line items are in. And from the group, we're looking at the nominal code attributed to that group. So against your products,
That's beautiful.
you have your,
Then you can put
thank
that to
you.
the dashboard if you really wanted to, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, 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 absolutely. That dashboard is just a collection of reports and some other stuff as well, but you can
yeah.
certainly put that on there as well. Yeah. And so what I did is I have uh, my recurring items in the recurring items group. And if I right click against that group and view/edit, I'll see that against my group, I have an income account and expense account. And then my
Mhm.
report is extracting or sort of grouping by our income and expense account, getting our total price and cost for the lines over the given date range. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that as well. If that is a report that people are interested in taking a look at, then I'd be happy to add that to the online repository as well. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Add it to the
Yeah,
online repository.
sure.
And that's awesome. I think that's a really nice looking report with a breakdown. And then you could probably go to the extent of grouping all of those things per customer if you really wanted to go have a more granular look into your profit margins.
That's
Um,
exactly it. Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah, you have the full reign of that SQL schema and all your custom fields and whatever you want to throw at Halo, which is amazing. So to wrap up everything that we talked about, there's a lot that we covered in the last 58 minutes. We got 2 minutes to go here. I'm just going to wrap it all up with some takeaways. So what are the takeaways? Real quick and simple is number one, if I can get to number one, is break out your service offerings, track profitability, audit your entire tech stack to maintain compliance, control costs, and optimize service delivery, and produce clear and accurate financial statements as to what Morgan just showed. Secondly, just highlighting where there's a will, there's a way. This is ultimately any MSP's motto. But in all seriousness, HaloPSA has top-notch customizability to accommodate any of your needs. So you just might need to put some sweat equity in. If not, reach out to Halo, reach out to their support team, and they would be more than happy to help you. But there's no extent as to what you can do with in Halo, which makes the platform what it is. It's truly remarkable. Lastly, I just wanted to take away 3 here is Synthesize Billing and HaloPSA are a great pairing. Now, I didn't have a chance, and nor did I really want to take the chance here to showcase Synthesize Billing, because really I didn't want to make it about our platform. I wanted to showcase Halo and all the best practices that go into billing. But if you wanted to use Synthesize Billing and update those recurring line items, and audit, reconcile, true up all your services, your user bundles, your workstations. If there's not a direct integration with Halo, maybe you want to take advantage of our import tool. That's available for you for free. We have an integration with HaloPSA. So if you haven't already signed up, sign up today. We have 20 odd integrations. The list continues to grow too. But again, we have this great reconciliation solution so you can layer on top of the automated billing practices within Halo, or you wanted to use it as like a final stop check. Either way, it's readily available for you. And lastly, I don't know if anyone had any other questions, but again, I'll just take a moment here if anyone has anything else. I think we've answered all of them.
And I just want to mention as well, of course, any questions that you do have regarding sort of what we've demonstrated today, you can reach out to support@halopsa.com, or me personally, morgan.aspinall@halopsa.com. Be happy to answer any questions that anyone had.
Awesome. Yeah, and then one final plug, as I mentioned at the start of this webinar, we do have Nerdy Birdy every 3rd Tuesday of every month. Next month rather, we're diving into getting into Nerdy Birdy with Chris Weiser at 7-Figure MSP. We're hosted with Colin Knox, which is the CEO at Gradient MSP. We're diving into 7-Figure MSP approach that focuses on maximizing profit and revenue margins through comprehensive packages, and then highlighting billing best practices across multiple PSAs. So we're not just talking Halo, we're talking Kaseya BMS, ConnectWise Manage, Autotask PSA, and some others riddled in there, but ultimately very much on the same token as we were talking today about the significance of breaking out your revenue and cost of goods sold. If you want to join on that, we'll send out a follow-up email to all those attended and registered today with that information, and we look forward to you registering and jumping on that series. So I think we got through it with a couple of minutes over our intended 1 hour there, but either way, we packed a lot of information in there. But again, reach out to Halo support if you have any additional questions or you need some help getting started. Thank you so much, Morgan. Thank you for everyone that attended this webinar. Really appreciate it. And you have yourself a fantastic evening, morning, wherever you are located today. But again, thank you so much, Morgan.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks, guys. All the best.
All right. Take care. Bye now.
Bye-bye.